Terrifying news shook the village. A local had been mauled by the alpha wild boar. Panic spread fast. Recognizing the sheer brutality and danger of this beast, we, a seasoned hunting team, were assembled without delay. With unwavering determination, we set out to track and eliminate this ferocious threat. This hunt wasn't just about survival, it was a mission. A burning desire to end the menace once and for all surged through every step we took into the forest. Silently, we moved deeper into the heart of the jungle, each footstep cushioned by layers of rotting leaves. Fresh tracks confirmed its path. Our hunting dogs were released. Minutes later, the forest erupted in chaos, barking, snapping branches, and the fierce roar of our quarry. The dogs had made contact. I flanked ahead, predicting the boar's escape route. No hesitation. I raised my rifle and squeezed the trigger. The shot rang out, clean, precise. The beast collapsed where it stood. First blood was drawn, but the hunt was far from over. Before we could catch our breath, a second wave of barks pierced the forest. Sharp, urgent. Another target. I spotted movement through a narrow gap between trees. No time for second chances. I fired. Another clean takedown. Swift. Decisive. Our strategy was working. The coordination, the willpower, the focus. It was all coming together. James, sharp-eared and steady, picked up faint rustling. Another large boar trying to sneak through a hidden trail. He moved like a shadow, predicting its path, positioning himself in a narrow clearing between two massive trunks. Rifle ready, breath steady, he waited. The boar burst out from the thicket, and James pulled the trigger without mercy. One more threat neutralized. Every takedown was a step closer to reclaiming our forest. Suddenly, the dogs' barking changed. Fierce, relentless. They had locked in. Right then, a massive wild boar charged from the undergrowth, snarling, fast as lightning. But I was ready. My aim steady, my resolve sharper than ever. One pull of the trigger, and the beast dropped instantly. No struggle, no escape. Another clean kill in a hunt that demanded perfection. Jack's signal came in. A target still lurked nearby. We pushed deeper into the dense forest, tracking the fading barks of our hounds. Then it happened. A panicked boar broke cover, fleeing the earlier skirmish. I intercepted its path and fired before it could vanish. Another down. The pressure was unrelenting, but so was our resolve. We pressed on. Suddenly, from a bush just yards ahead, another giant burst out, fast and furious. No time to think. Instinct took over. The shot rang out, and the beast collapsed mid-charge. It was moments like these that proved the hunt wasn't just physical, it was mental. Precision, reflex, dominance. The threat was falling, piece by piece. In a sparse part of the forest, our hounds, exhausted but relentless, kept the creature in check. Hearing the chaos, I arrived at the scene. No time to hesitate. I took the shot. Blinded, clean. The beast's resistance ended in an instant. Have you ever witnessed wild boars destroying crops firsthand? They don't just eat the corn, they trample, uproot, and destroy entire fields. This time, my close friend called me in a trembling voice. "Come back quickly, the wild boars are here, wrecking everything." When I arrived, I was speechless. His whole field was in ruins. We couldn't just sit there and watch this devastation unfold. We made up our minds. We would go into the forest and hunt down these destructive creatures. Stay with us to see if we can pull it off. The strategy meeting was quick. Each of us had a task, a position to take. Guns, binoculars, GPS, and of course, the hunting dogs were all ready. With everything set, we moved toward the enemy's turf, determined to show no mercy. It wasn't even fully daylight yet, but we had already taken our positions in the marked areas. I was stationed on the middle of the hill, where I could easily keep an eye on the surrounding land and break the wild boar's formation. Then, it appeared. A dark shape slowly walked out from the bushes. I held my breath, locking onto the target. 1, 2, and 3. The bullet sped off, making the boar pause for a moment. It tried to scurry away to find shelter. I stayed calm, watching the target quietly. A few minutes later, the boar collapsed in the bushes just ahead. I let out a quiet sigh. The journey ahead would be tough, but stay with us to see what happens next. While I was locked in combat with my target, a shadow suddenly rushed forward. The previous shot had alerted the other boars, and chaos ensued. Fast as lightning, one of the boars came into Jack's line of sight. The distance was perfect. Boom! A shot that echoed through the hills, quieting the madness around us. We exchanged glances. That was a perfect, timely shot to stop the oncoming danger. We moved toward the next hill. This area had thick patches of grass, not too dense, making it an ideal hiding spot for the wild boars, but also a perfect place for us to take them down. There it was, the wild boar, startled, charging out from the thicket. I held my breath, watching carefully, waiting for the perfect moment. It paused, and that was when I squeezed the trigger. The boar dropped instantly. At this point, chaos unfolded before our eyes. A barrage of shots rang out. Sensing the danger, the remaining boars panicked and scattered, fleeing deeper into the forest. Plan B was quickly set in motion. We pushed into the woods, determined to track down the wild boars. We weren't gonna let them escape. The terrain presented significant challenges for us, making it hard to spot the wild boars. Suddenly, the familiar sound of footsteps caught my attention. My senses were instantly on high alert. My heart raced. I took a deep breath, aiming my rifle in the direction of the noise. At that moment, a shadow shot out like an arrow. Headshot! The boar dropped instantly, before it could even make a move toward me. Radio crackled with a report from my team. An enemy was closing in on my position at lightning speed. I could hear it, footsteps approaching. I raised my rifle and waited. Then, as expected, a shadow emerged from the trees. I pulled the trigger. The shot rang true, taking the boar down. We weren't about to let anything threaten the peace of this village. If it came anywhere near us, there would be no mercy. As the sun began to set, we moved toward the edge of the forest. But we stayed alert. The boars were still nearby, and they could attack at any moment. Sure enough, the sound of rustling leaves caught our attention once more. There it was! A familiar silhouette appeared, and with a swift shot, we brought it down. The boar staggered before falling to the ground. It was the perfect ending to our hunt.
Wild boars have exceeded the allowable population density. With their numbers overwhelming the ecosystem, they've become a real threat to both the forest and the nearby human communities. They destroy vegetation, tear up the ground surface, damage young tree roots, and cause soil erosion. Today's hunt is not merely for sport or a traditional festivity, it's part of an ecological management mission. On a cold winter morning in the forests of Hungary, Chris Dorsey and his hunting team were already in position, swiftly moving toward their designated ambush spots. Suddenly, the sharp rustle of leaves echoed nearby. A massive wild boar burst out of the underbrush at incredible speed. A series of precise shots rang out. In an instant, the boar collapsed, unable to take another step. Gunfire erupted from other positions. Every trigger pull carried an ecological responsibility, controlling the wild boar population to protect the forest ecosystem, which has been increasingly threatened by their overpopulation. Not far away, the sound of barking dogs echoed through the air, signaling the target's location. We followed the noise to the designated intercept point marked by Felix. As expected, it was heading straight toward where I was waiting. I aimed carefully, tracking the wild boar's every stride. And with a clean shot, its escape came to an end. No more destruction, no more running. Rain began to fall, and we quickly took cover at our ambush positions, waiting for the prey to appear. This was the moment they would start moving back to their shelter. As expected, a group of wild boars emerged, sprinting in formation at full speed. Waiting until they came close, Liam swiftly pulled the trigger. Bursts of gunfire echoed through the trees. In the end, he brought down the lead boar, but the others quickly vanished into the depths of the forest. The rain had just stopped, and we immediately resumed tracking the remaining trail. Just 5 minutes later, the barking of the hounds echoed from within the bushes, a clear sign. I halted, eyes straining to observe. Suddenly, a wild boar charged straight out from the low leaves in front of me. Without a second thought, I raised my gun and pulled the trigger repeatedly. The boar took the hits, staggered, then collapsed down the slope from sheer inertia.
Merci.
Oui, je t'entends.
I whistled, calling the dogs to search for the boar's body further below. It was a swift, decisive strike, leaving the beast no chance to escape. The sun still hung high above as our hunting group pressed deeper into the forest. A herd of wild boars cut across the path we had been lying in wait. A volley of gunfire erupted. Not every shot landed, but a few boars dropped, their escape cut short midway. The atmosphere shifted. You could feel it in the nods exchanged, the lighter steps, a quiet sense of triumph as we moved forward through the dense underbrush. As the sunlight faded, we rushed to track down the stragglers before nightfall closed in. Gunfire echoed through the forest. Suddenly, a dark figure burst out from the thicket right in front of me. Without hesitation, I pulled the trigger, but it wasn't enough. The target slipped away. I quickly identified the direction it was heading and radioed Kay. "One's headed your way." Less than a minute later, Kay's shot rang out clean and sharp. One final trophy to mark the end of a long, hard-fought day. On the journey tracking wild boars along the Mediterranean region, the first stop is Kalsrala Hill, a land heavily ravaged by beasts hiding in the thickets, causing damage worth millions of dollars. Leading the hunting team is Thomas, a man famed for his ability to take down wild boars with a single bullet. The sky hasn't fully brightened yet. A light mist still clings to the hillside, but his team is already in position. The hunting dogs sniff through each patch of grass, weaving through dense trees to search for any remaining traces. Thomas rushes toward the sound. Then, from within the thick bushes, that familiar dark figure appears, frantically trying to flee. Without hesitation, Thomas steadies his rifle, waits for it to fully reveal itself, then pulls the trigger. A perfect shot to large, a heavy boar collapses on the spot. A decisive shot, glory is achieved. And the hunting team has saved Calcerola from being torn apart by the claws and tusks of these destructive beasts. Lucky led a small team, driving rugged off-road vehicles through winding trails deep into the thick forest. As soon as they arrived, they spread out to track signs of their prey. While Lucky was closing in on a suspicious area, a gunshot suddenly rang out from teammate. Just moments later, a familiar dark figure darted past. He gripped his rifle tightly, calmly holding the line. A series of shots rang out in quick succession, each one tracing the creature's every step until it finally collapsed on the cold forest floor. If it were you, would you stay calm in a life-or-death situation like that? Respect to Lucky in that moment. He was more than a hunter. He was a cold-blooded warrior in the depths of the French wilderness. Continuing our journey from the vast Campine forest, we headed southeast into the rugged terrain of southern Italy, Calabria, where wild boars exploit the mountainous landscape to hide and continue wreaking havoc on crops. At 6 a.m., Johnny's team, led by Thomas's trusted comrade, arrived and quietly spread out, blending into the terrain while waiting for the right moment. As he observed the opposite hillside, Johnny suddenly spotted a lone wild boar, casually foraging, completely unaware it had stepped in the crosshairs. Calmly, he chambered round, steadied his aim, and pulled the trigger. A clean, sharp shot rang out. The boar dropped instantly. For Johnny, there was no need for a chase or struggle. Just one well-timed decision was enough to make the beast fall before man. This time, Cade's team came fully prepared, armed with every tool and a fierce determination to put an end to the beast's destruction. They didn't choose open clearings or easy vantage points. Instead, they moved silently into the heart of the forest, where thick trunks and tangled branches form a natural maze of traps. And just as they had anticipated, within minutes, a shadowy figure began to emerge in the distance. As the boar crept closer, a clean shot rang out. It dropped instantly, without a chance to react. Buck's team, accompanied by a pack of seasoned hunting dogs, was combing through thick brush, hot on the trail of wild boars. After 30 minutes of tracking, a thunderous burst of barking erupted near the grassy forest edge. The dogs had found their target, a massive beast weighing nearly 400 pounds. Sensing a brief opening, the monstrous boar broke from the encirclement, charging through the trees like a storm. But it was too late. With a creature of that size, even one escape could mean the destruction of an entire field.
The farming system in the Czech countryside has been under continuous attack by wild boars, causing severe damage to the harvest last season. Thomas, my longtime farmer friend, contacted me in urgent need of help to eliminate this threat. I quickly prepared myself for the perilous mission ahead, knowing that this trip would not only determine the fate of his family, but also that of the entire rural community. At 5 a.m., we arrived at the edge of the forest. Our specialized weapons and modern equipment were thoroughly checked before we ventured into the woods. The hunting dogs were released, bringing their strength and keen instincts to track down the prey. The familiar barking signal echoed through the air, and I immediately selected the optimal position to intercept. With skills honed through many hunts, the dogs quickly spotted the wild boars and drove them into my range. And then, in that moment, a deafening shot rang out, marking the beginning of a perfect coordination between man and hunting dogs. Suspecting that there were still more boars hiding deeper inside, we decided to push further in. Everyone quickly spread out, each covering a different area, moving silently as we tracked our targets. My eyes scanned the surroundings, spotting small groups as well as solitary individuals. To avoid startling them, I decided to take down the lone ones first. As the target came into my sights, I squeezed the trigger decisively. The beast collapsed, unable to comprehend the situation. It was a moment of calm, precision, and total control of the situation. Groups of wild boars, large and small, rushed out one after another, testing our patience and judgment. While I was focused on dealing with them, a few managed to slip away unnoticed. Yet, I wasn't worried, knowing that Nick was covering the lower end, ensuring no boar could slip through. As soon as the target became clear, a sharp shot rang out, decisively taking down the beast in an instant. What do you think of this strategy? On the edge of the forest, Jack's team was tasked with guarding the perimeter, where the quiet atmosphere stood in stark contrast to the deafening gunshots from the central area. Yet, their eyes never wavered, remaining focused and alert to every sound and movement. The distant gunfire could easily send the wild boars into a panic, causing them to flee into areas like this one. Soon enough, a wild boar appeared. The moment it stepped out from behind the trees, the bullet flew and hit its mark. Though not large, it was still a threat that had to be dealt with immediately to prevent further chaos in other areas. Before we could even get close to inspect, the sound of the hunting dogs caught Jack's attention. Without hesitation, he charged straight toward the source of the noise. "Look, it's no small one," Jack whispered. The moment had come, and his finger squeezed the trigger instantly. The shot rang out, adding another mark to this thrilling journey. One by one, more targets were taken down by our professional teammates. After the fog cleared, the light had never been so clear. The prey, hidden in the mist, now stood exposed in the open field. We quickly deployed and took down the targets with perfect precision. After hours of fighting, the spoils were beyond expectations. The sweat and relentless effort paid off, bringing a successful and productive hunting morning to a close. It had been ages since I last visited my grandma's place, but the moment I set foot there, my smile faded. Her entire field was devastated. Wild boar tracks everywhere, scars in the earth. My brothers and I couldn't just sit still. A decision was made. We had to enter the forest and track down these marauders. This trip would be more perilous than peaceful. What will be the outcome? Join us and find out. We quickly held one last strategy meeting, assigned positions to each hunter. Gear was strapped on, boots laced tight, the sharp click of magazines locking into rifles echoed decisively. The hunting dogs settled in the bed of the pickup truck, and we rolled toward enemy territory. At dawn, still heavy with sleep, we took our positions. I chose a terraced hillside, a natural fortress with a panoramic view, where they often return after a night's feeding. The cold air was still and tense. Then it appeared, a dark shape moving confidently, breaking away from the far forest edge. I held my breath. The cold barrel warmed in my hands. At just the right distance, the shot rang out. Bang! The prey dropped. A clean opening shot, promising a day full of hunts. But the thrill was short-lived. The first gunfire stirred the rest of the herd. From my spot, I caught sight of a bigger, darker figure moving on the opposite hillside. It exposed itself. A deadly mistake. I fired. The bullets tore through the air. The beast was hit, but fueled by wild survival instinct, it bolted. Plan B was activated immediately. We unleashed the hunting dogs. Sharp and fast, their barking echoed through the forest, driving the wounded target right into our trap. Down the hill, where the prey was being herded, was a sparse forest, not too dense to hide, but enough cover for us. The dog's barks grew louder. The target was close. My heart pounded, not from fear, but focus. No escape! As the frantic shadow dashed across my sight line, I squeezed the trigger swiftly, stopping its lightning-fast run. While I held the front, my brothers cleared both forest edges. More targets down. This was a task demanding a cool mind and a brave heart to protect the hard-earned harvest of a whole village. The sun climbed high, hot, and relentless. Now the challenge was patience, not visibility. A subtle shake of the bushes caught my eye. I signaled the team, found a concealed position to intercept its exit. Raising my rifle, holding my breath, I waited. The moment it peeked out to move, I fired. One shot, instant takedown. Shortly after, a teammate radioed. Another was being pushed my way. Without hesitation, I repositioned, ready to intercept. Heart pounding, rifle steady. As the boar charged from the bushes into the clearing, my burst rang out, decisive, pinning it down before it could flee. Did that quick reaction make your heart race? Drop a comment and share your thoughts. Still gripping the warm rifle, I fired another volley, taking down a few more charging beasts. Late afternoon, wary but alert, we began heading back. On a high hillside, a final target appeared. Calmly, I controlled my breathing, calculated wind and trajectory. One perfect shot flew, hitting the mark flawlessly. The beast faltered and fell, closing a hard-fought day. Precision shooting at long range, one-shot kills, are a hunter's pride, the fruit of experience and relentless training. Into the Land Rover Defender for the ride home. Not triumphant hunters, but fulfilled guardians who completed their mission. The fire of determination in our hearts rekindled hope over the ravaged fields. Tonight, the village will sleep peacefully, and tomorrow, my mother's hands will nurture new life once more. This trip back to visit my dad in Texas was sadder than I expected. Standing before the barren, ruined sweet potato fields, the culprit was clear: wild boars. Furious and determined, I knew what had to be done. This hunt wasn't just for passion, it was to protect family. A plan was set in motion, but who would get the happy ending? Join me and find out. At the rally point, we discussed strategy, dividing into multiple attack teams. Static buzzed faintly through the radio headsets, binding us into one unit. Guns loaded, helicopter blades roared, the signal that we were ready. At first light, we arrived at rugged, rocky terrain, hunting the enemy's shadow. Suddenly, a huge dark figure burst from the brush, unaware its every move was already locked in our sights. Without a word, my team and I moved in perfect sync, pulling triggers as the helicopter swooped in to stop this destruction in its tracks. That opening shot was a vow. Today, not one wild boar would escape. Intense silence. Each gunshot from nearby teammates meant another enemy down. The sun climbed higher, heat thickening the air. The crafty boars split from the herd, darting into sparse woods, using trees as shields. They moved in arcs, trying to outsmart us. This was a test of patience. We didn't rush, but calmly tracked, predicting its path. Then, in a brief lapse, the bullet ended the deadly game of hide and seek. With grit and persistence, even the craftiest prey falls. One by one, the boars were wiped out. This was the reward of years of experience, courage, and unshakable trust in each other. After hours of battle, we paused to recharge, but the war was far from over. Flying low near bushes, we did a final sweep before moving to the nearby grasslands. When the last prey there fell, we pressed on to the flatter pastures. Luck smiled on us. We encountered a boar charging directly toward us, almost offering itself up. Seizing this golden opportunity, I aimed and fired at the zigzagging target. The stubborn last one finally surrendered. Gunfire scattered nearby boars, who bolted like black arrows across the field. Locked on a target and squeezed the trigger. Down went one. No time to cool down the barrel. I swung to the next. When hunters work as one, the only outcome for the beast is the earth beneath it. From another direction, teammates' bursts took down more targets. We closed in like a vice, leaving no gap for escape. During patrol, we spotted a lone boar running across green grass. The helicopter closed in. My cockpit window pointed squarely at the target. At the perfect distance, I held my breath, locked the aim, and squeezed the trigger. Bang! The boar flipped and fell instantly. The noise startled nearby boars, who surged out in a tight line. We chased hard, calling James' team over the radio to cut them off. My gun roared non-stop, silencing chaos wherever the barrel pointed. James' crew arrived swiftly. He fired into the running shadows, hitting the lead boar. Dust exploded as it hit the ground. As one threat ended, my brother's shots rang out from the other side. Good! More boars dropped. My teammates nailed every frantic, desperate target. The hunt paused as the sun set, but we knew this war is long. Come fall, when fields dry and boars return stronger, we'll be back. When the target appeared, the helicopter closed in, giving me the perfect shot to take down the prey in a blink. No matter the numbers, there's no retreat until this land is safe.